Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Amazi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
The title of this episode is I Graduated from Harvard, and I actually did in a way. This is my reflection on an experience I had a couple of months ago. I decided that after 12 years of coaching men to freedom from pornography and sexually compulsive disorders, that I would try to challenge my coaching ability and my coaching knowledge by finding some sort of training that could help me level up. I have never wanted to be complacent, nor have I wanted to be arrogant about my coaching skill. So every year I get a new coaching certification in a different modality. The last year, 2024, Harvard Medical School was offering a wellness coaching certification, and it was the first time they were doing it. It was specifically designed for physicians, for surgeons, for therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, people in the medical field, presumably those who had graduated from Harvard, who were actually trying to learn how to coach professionally and offer that as a service to their clientele. Because a lot of times physicians still teach whatever or prescribe based on the things they learned in medical school, which are largely outdated, especially when it comes to lifestyle and wellness. And Harvard Medical School realized this and realized that a lot of disease, a lot of addiction can be prevented just by lifestyle changes. But doctors were largely resistant to this and would keep prescribing pills and medication. So they launched this coaching certification within Harvard Medical School in order to start focusing more on lifestyle and wellness. So I saw it and I saw that, it's like a 12-week course. It looks pretty intensive. It's expensive as well. It's up there. So I decided to apply for it. And a lot of the coaching that I've gotten in the coaching certification I've gotten in the last few years, I've only been allowed into it, even though it wasn't open for me, by virtue of my years of coaching. And they would do research on me. I would give them references. Long story short, I went through the interview process and I got accepted. I jumped into this a little bit intimidated, to be honest, because the classrooms were filled with all these experienced physicians who were very genuine. Like, these were hardworking men and women. Some were even lecturers from Harvard Medical School who were jumping in to be part of this exciting new certification. I learned a couple of things which I'd like to share with you guys. This is quite relevant to your controlling your out-of-control sexual behavior. I jump in there and I'm going through the classes. And after a couple of weeks, something becomes very apparent to me. Well, two things become apparent to me. The first is that I have had so much hands-on experience that it became very difficult as somebody who spends most of his time working with clients and growing multiple businesses, most of them in the addiction recovery space, to sit and listen to things that I have done and I do on a daily basis. So I was really trying to be teachable, but a lot of the things felt basic to me. I know they weren't, because there were definitely physicians of 20 years experience and more who were in there learning. So I kept an open mind, but it got harder and harder. The second thing I learned was that most of those physicians weren't actually there to learn that. They liked what Harvard said about learning about lifestyle and wellness coaching and not prescribing medication, because they've seen it on Instagram and they see on social media that people are becoming very skeptical of the medical industry, worried about the rising cost, the always high cost of health insurance, and that they were just looking for other remedies and focusing on health, cutting down their drinking and so on. They were actually trying to get into the coaching business. So they were very interested because they started seeing that, wow, there are a lot of consultants out there. There are a lot of physicians who left the hospital and started their own private practice But to become successful in their private practice, they had to structure it in a way that they could give out information, or they could host workshops, or they could coach large numbers of people. And they were starting to realize that it's lucrative because it is not as regulated as the medical industry. So everybody was trying to get into private practice, get into some sort of coaching and consulting so that they could basically make more money and talk about their own personal experiences without being hampered by HIPAA laws and so on and so forth. That is very important, people, because they believed that by getting more information about coaching, by getting a certification, they would somehow be able to not just become better coaches, but start a successful coaching practice and be able to help people. And that is wrong. Not wrong as in morally wrong. That is a complete incorrect thought. Most of these individuals, because I have been in many coaching groups over the years, I have run some, I've taught people in them who have a skill set and wants to go out there and help people, or who have a problem and want to end the problem, i.e. pornography addiction, but believe that information is the answer, because we were all raised to believe that knowledge is power. Go to school, get an education, and the more knowledge you get, the more you're going to be able to know, the more you're going to be able to do, the more you're even going to be able to earn. But the truth is that knowledge, or rather more knowledge, does not equal more power or change in your life. It is action instead that leads to that. So I'll often hear people say things like, well, let me just go back to the Harvard thing for a second. In the last few weeks of this certification, and full disclosure, I didn't attend the last few sessions. I stopped showing up live. I rather spend time in front of my clients. I'd watch some of the recordings, but to pass this class, you had to do all the homework, you had to do all the discussions, you had to do all of the things to get the certification. And I did all of those things. But I completed the last 6 weeks in about 2 hours. So I literally sat there, looked at the transcripts of what was read, and I took all the exams at the end in 2 hours. It's not a flex. When you actually have experience in doing something, you know the answer. So when somebody puts a scenario in front of you and says a client is dealing with this, what would you do in order to support the client through this? And I would just respond to it. So I got the certification. But at the end of that 12 weeks, what many of the participants were asking were, how do I go about getting clients? How do I go about getting my clients to stay? How do I, quote unquote, convince people that this is something that they actually need? So you see, they spent all of that money and that time getting all this information on how to be a coach, but they didn't get the most important thing. The most important thing is, how do you find the right people? The most important thing is, how do you get your message out there to people? The most important thing is, how do you actually, first of all, live that life yourself? This is not something that I heard during the training. They were talking about lifestyle and wellness and coaching other people, but not enough about the importance of you being the example to those people. This is interesting because this is Harvard Medical School, and these are doctors who are prescribing something. And sometimes you look at your doctor, no offense, and you're just like, I don't know if this guy is actually living that life. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that there were quite a few doctors who, I learned a lot too going through that process. It's not like it was all basic for me. There were some interesting things I learned about lifestyle and wellness, some things which I will be teaching. But ultimately, they didn't get what they truly needed to start their coaching business, or to include that in what they were offering in their private practice. This happens so often in our lives. And I do get a little bit frustrated when a man will reach out and say, JK, I'm thinking of becoming a porn addiction recovery coach, which I encourage. We need more people helping men to end this behavior, but I just don't know where to start getting a certification. I'm like, first of all, do you have control over your behavior? I have been shocked the number of therapists that have reached out to me saying like, hey, do you offer certification? By the way, we do. Do you offer certification to become coaches and to train? And I'm like, do you have any experience with this? They're like, no, I don't. I was like, okay, that's fine. It's okay if you want to help. But what's your morning routine like? What's your lifestyle like? And when I start asking them about their lifestyle, they're confused. They're like, why are you asking me about my mindset and my lifestyle? And I'm like, because if you're going to coach people and show them what they are capable of, which is what coaching is, showing an individual that they know themselves best, that they are the best experts at themselves. You're simply guiding them so that they can do it. Like when a basketball coach is coaching the players, he's showing them how to get to their potential. He's removing any obstacles that are in their way. But it's not just based on knowledge. It's based on experience and also your past or present capacity for living that way, for being able to demonstrate it, especially when it comes to addictive behaviors. They don't have any of that going on for them, but they believe that if they are armed with the information, they would be able to help people. My brother, if information or the right information was the answer, don't you think that in 2025, with an abundance of information. We have so much information. You can go into ChatGPT and you can ask it anything and it will give you. You can ask ChatGPT, how do I quit pornography? You can ask ChatGPT, how do I start a business? You can ask ChatGPT, you can do anything. There's an answer for all the information. But if information truly and the right information was the answer, why is everyone around us not as successful as they could be? Why do we have more people struggling with mental illness? Why do we have more individuals being addicted to pornography if all the negative effects are out there? Why? Because information and the right information, finding that magical piece of information is not the answer. This is the reason why many men, you, struggling with pornography addiction, are not able to stop. One of the many reasons. You think that you need to find the right system. You think you need to find somebody out there who has not a magic pill, but an approach that is a quote unquote good fit for you. You always need more information before you make a decision. You are so busy considering, is this the right path for me? Do I agree with the concepts here? Let me do more research on this individual and this path. Let me go a little bit deeper and find more proof of if this information is actually correct. I'm not implying that you should just pull the trigger on anything, the first thing that shows up that says, like, this is the solution to the problem. Of course, do research, do a background check. But you don't need as much time as you think you do in order to take action. Not just make a decision, but to take action. People make decisions about things all the time. You've bought courses. You've joined coaching programs. How many of them have you joined? How many books have you bought? How many courses have you gotten that you did not finish? There are so many people now that are skeptical about online courses. They're like, oh, it doesn't work. Let me tell you this. We have many courses. I'm not a fan of courses. I've often said that. I think a human being needs to be in front of another human being, like whether it's via Zoom or in person, and that is where transformation happens. Well, transformation happens on your own, but the catalyst of transformation happens in those face-to-face encounters with other human beings. But so many people purchase courses and they never finish them. We have people who have old courses. The reason I stopped running the Porn Reboot course and closed it down was because people never finished the course. We made it as engaging as we could. People would just not go through it, or they would rush through it and they would just go like, yeah, that was cool information. That was just cool information. And I'll talk about, well, you know what? I'll talk about that today too. The people who accomplish things, the men who overcome their out of control behavior, overwhelmingly take action. They actually do not need every single tool within the Porn Reboot system for them to end their behavior. They pay attention and they understand that when they find certain things within a system that work for them or they are really good at and it's moving them forward, they double down on those things and just take massive action till they get to the next level. Others instead will do something and they're like, oh my God, it's a little bit challenging. And your habits of seeking information will kick in. You start doubting yourself. You start thinking, man, this is challenging, which is normal. You're supposed to power through that challenge. And there's always challenge when you're learning something new, especially the older you get. Instead of pushing through it, you have self-doubt. You're like, wow, this is harder than I thought it would be. There must be an easier way that resonates with me. And you go off. When you experience self-doubt, you become susceptible to other people's marketing of information. So you start listening to things and going like, wow, that sounds really good. I think I'm going to jump into it. I think I'm going to try that. You abandon the thing you were initially doing, thinking that this one is going to be your holy grail, and you end up doing the exact same thing. And when you look back, you never see this pattern of constantly starting things and quitting them only because you don't have the habit of taking action. Action involves having resolve, resolving that you are going to deal with all the challenges that come up, a habit that many men do not have because of information collecting behavior. When you take action over and over again, and 90% of your time is spent taking action, but only 10% is spent gathering knowledge, specific knowledge. When you do that, you learn certain things. You learn about commitment, doing the thing you said you were going to do, even when the emotion, when you originally made the commitment, has passed. You learn that by consistently taking action. You learn about resolve. Resolve means we are going to climb this mountain. And in the process of climbing this mountain, there are going to be many setbacks. And because this is a new mountain, some of these setbacks are setbacks that we have never experienced before. So how do we deal with setbacks that we have never experienced before if we don't know, if we have no idea what they are? It is via resolve. Resolve is we will not quit. We will find a way around this setback. If you do not understand commitment and you do not understand resolve, then you do not understand what it takes to actually take action. And thus, you commit to so many things, quote unquote, I'm using commitment in quotes, and you never go all the way. Your life stagnates. Nothing is accomplished. Here's one final thing about being an information seeker. A lot of people, especially when it came to that Harvard coaching program, and I watched the language that they were using, there were some people that you could see were immediately taking action. They were actually very interested in learning how to be coaches. And you could tell that immediately in their personal life, even though they didn't have clients, they were just doing it with their patients. They were doing it with their mom, their dad, their kids. They were like applying those coaching skills. Then there was a larger group that was amazed by the information. Like their mind was blown by all the insights. Whoa, like I never thought of it that way. Whoa, in all my years as a practicing this and this, I never knew that it was, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Wow, this is really a huge paradigm shift. You would hear things along the lines of this. You'd hear comments along the line of this. And those are individuals. Again, I'm generalizing because I do not know these people. This is just based on my experience spending hundreds of thousands of dollars being in coaching certification programs, running my own coaching certification programs, and working with thousands of men. In general, these individuals are individuals who are content with insights. And I want you to ask yourself, are you a man who is content with insight? Because I used to be that man for many years as well. Being content with insight means you gather information and you know all these things. Like you're like, whoa, this gave me a deeper understanding of real estate, of addictive behavior, of the principles behind investing, of why women act this way in relationships. But you do nothing with the information. We all know that some information is going to be lost. Some information is going to be retained by your brain and it will be retrieved at a time when it is needed. But a lot of the information will never be useful information to you unless it is applied in a practical way. And individuals who are content with insights are a dime a dozen. They are all over the internet. You go to Reddit, you go to Quora, you go to X, you go to Instagram comments, you go to Threads. It doesn't matter where you hang out online. It is filled with individuals who are content with insights. They have so much to share. It is really rich feedback, but there is not enough action that is actually being taken on the other side. My challenge to you is to just do one thing as this podcast episode ends, as you're driving, running, walking, however you're listening to this, is to ask yourself, brother, am I an action taker or am I an information gatherer? Am I an action taker or am I an information gatherer? And to those of you who are in our programs, who I know listen to the podcast, really appreciate you guys. I also want you to ask yourself that question. Whenever I experience a relapse or a slip, it's my first instinct to go and get more information about my reboot, to get specific as to like, well, what is it that I need to do to get out of this relapse? And then go and do it. Or do I tell myself, I'm going to go back to the back end and watch all the modules? I need to, I just need to go back to the basics. Going back to the basics often is code word for I need to go back and review that information again. No, you don't. You know what you need to do is you need to take action. You can go back and review it, but immediately you're done reviewing it for like 5-10 minutes. The next thing you need to do for the next couple of days, weeks, or months is implement that action. But people say review, you're like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm going back to the basics because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to review it, JK, and I'm going to do just what you said. I'm going to go implement it. No, you're not. I know that because I still make that mistake myself today. Once in a while, I'll catch myself going like, oh my God, I can't believe that I fell into this way of thinking again. This is not a productive way of thinking or behaving. I'm going to go back to the basics. I wouldn't use the word go back to the basics, but I'll go back to my little blue book. Okay, the little blue book for me is the book that from when I was 21 years old, I started journaling in, and it's the book that formed the foundation of the Reboot program. I'll go back to it and I'll find myself going through it. And the next thing I know, I'm 1 hour into reading it. I'm like, bro, 1 hour just going like, whoa, my God, I was 23 and I said this? Dude, like, wow. How can I be 40 years old right now and still have forgotten that? Oh, I got to find out more. And I keep reading my own stuff, going deeper and deeper, getting all these insights and reminders. But nothing changed the fact that there was something I did and learned when I was 23 years old that brought me a lot of success over the last few years. But at 40, I'm not implementing it. That alone should tell me that while I have been reminding myself of this thing for many, many, many years, none of that stuff mattered. 23-year-old me took action. 40, 39, 38, 37-year-old me, when it came to that specific thing, was not taking action. It doesn't matter. You don't. People think, oh, well, I did something 10 years ago and I got information about something and I took advantage of that information. Therefore, I am that type of person. No, you could have lived a lifestyle for many years, but that doesn't mean that your self-image changed. It is just like people who go to AA or go to a 12-step program. Yes, you can live the step lifestyle, which is day by day, but until your self-image changes when it comes to that thing, it is not in you. It is the reason why those of you who are highly successful in your business, in your family, in your church, in different areas of your life, struggle mightily to end your behavior with pornography because you truly believe that all the information that you had, that you used to become a successful individual, and the willpower you used to stay off pornography for a few months or a couple of years is the same thing that's going to help you change your behavior today. No, the only thing that's going to help you is action done repeatedly over and over again, and prioritize with commitment and resolve until your self-image changes. So please ask yourself again, am I an action taker or am I an information gatherer? And then whenever you're ready to become a part of one of our coaching groups, whether it's the implementation program, which has daily coaching, or a part of the intensive program, which is the main program that I coach in now. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. And for your information, 2025, I made a promise to the men who were in the group in 2024. And you know what? I'm not even going to share what that promise is. I'm going to share it in the next episode. So I'll catch you on the next episode. But whenever you're ready to end your behavior, I suggest you get on a call with one of our Reboot strategists. I want to make one thing clear. There are 2 calls you will get on. One is to find out if you are a good fit for our program. However, there is something different about the men you get on a phone call with in our program. They are all certified coaches. That was my requirements 2 years ago, that all of them needed to go through certification with our program and work with some therapists so that when they show up with you, it is not a quote-unquote sale. We do everything with compassion first at Elevated Recovery. The first thing they need to hear from you is your pain. If we do not hear what your pain is or what your desire is for a greater future, and if we feel that you're just checking it out, you're not really committed, they'll just honestly tell you that you're not going to have that conversation with you. But if you want to talk about this, maybe you're not even able to afford it yet, you're not ready to pull the trigger or anything like that, that's fine. But if you're very serious, you're like, man, I'm in a lot of pain, or this is really in my way, and I've listened to the Porn Reboot podcast, but I'm a busy guy. I just want to talk to somebody who can tell me directly how this is going to help me. If it doesn't resonate with me, if it's like, yeah, it's cool, you know what, I'll just keep listening to JK's podcast, that's okay. But get on the call with them and at least have that conversation. No pressure conversation. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the promise that I made to the men in the intensive. And it's important because it is unlike anything that has been done in any addiction recovery program. In fact, it is scary for me. So I'll see you in the next episode.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.